Welcome to the Japan podcast. My name is Filip, and this is episode 0. In today's episode, I'll do my best to answer several questions. What is this? Who am I? Why the hell am I doing this? Why would you call this mind duck? And so on and so forth. So let's start straight away. As I mentioned, I am Filip. I am currently in Japan and I have decided to change my life for several undisclosed reasons. And here I am, half a year later in Japan, teaching English, basically doing what I have planned half a year ago. The plan was simple. I had a simple thought. If I wanted to try living in a different country and a different city, where would I like to do that if I really could choose any place in the world? So of course, Tokyo was the choice. And as you might imagine, it wasn't easy. It took a lot of time and effort. And after half a year of asking several schools and companies if I could get a chance actually getting a job interview or at least talking to the school, I was rejected by about 30-35 schools, and after not giving up and just step by step getting closer to my goal, which is something I always tell people, if you want to achieve something, just do anything at all that moves you in the right direction, and if you don't give up long enough, eventually you will get there. Which is what happened to me. I didn't think it would, but because I was feeling really demotivated, quite depressed. I had this one goal I wanted to achieve, meaning I got up every day in the morning, got a load of bad feelings because several schools rejected me, but I had this one rule that I will not give up until I at least have a chance at getting this job. So I contacted more schools, and then the next day another set of schools, and I did a lot of them until finally one company gave me the chance to come to Japan and teach in Japan. Long story short, I got the visa for 1 year. So now I am in Japan teaching English and hopefully learning Japanese, meeting new people, having a lot of new experiences. A lot of people have told me, you should write a blog, you should make a YouTube channel, you should do something about that, take a lot of photos, which I obviously would like to do for several reasons. So let me talk about that for a minute. So why exactly am I doing this? There are lots and lots of reasons actually. One of the most obvious reasons is just to talk about Japan, because a lot of people are interested in Japan. Some people might be interested in coming to Japan and working in Japan, where I would hopefully be able to give you some advice and some tips what you should and shouldn't do when you come here, and also how to make your life easier if you want to go through all the paperwork and all the documents and finding a place where to live. So that's one of the reasons. The real reason, I think one of the main reasons I really want to do this is just to change people's view on things in the world and their lives. What I really love to do in my job, one of the biggest reasons I am a teacher, is to change people's life for the better, hopefully. Inspire them to do something they wanted to do, something they need to do, something they really would appreciate in their life. So this sounds quite corny, doesn't it? But it's actually something I value the most about what I do, and that's if a person learns something, if he gets inspired to do something, that's something that really makes me happy. So hopefully this is another way I could attempt to do this. One of my friends always tells me that I'm such a bastard for manipulating people during my lessons. I never decided if this is true. I love understanding how people behave, how people decide, how people think. I love understanding different cultures, how people have different views and opinions and values in their lives. That's one of the biggest reasons I am so interested in the Japanese culture, because it's so different. And speaking Japanese makes you really think in a different way, which is honestly really fascinating to me. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is that if I manage to make somebody more positive, make somebody more optimistic, make somebody more open-minded, that's something that I really love about my job, and that's why I like to do this. So hopefully, if you don't know anything about Japan, if you think different things about Japan, or just traveling and other cultures and people around the world, this should hopefully give you a better insight into the culture, hopefully make you less xenophobic, not a racist. I think if you were a racist you wouldn't listen to me anyway, but never mind. It would hopefully make you just appreciate different things and not think that they are weird, but hopefully think that they are interesting and valuable from a different point of view. Another reason I'm doing this is that I haven't made a lot of friends in Japan yet, and the people I talk to mostly speak only Japanese or bad English, which means the conversation is quite limited. And I'm a person who has too many ideas, and when I get some ideas, when I get into something, I can't stop talking. So I need somewhere, I need a place to vent, and because there aren't any poor people who have to listen to me, I will just talk to myself. And if you don't need it, if you don't want to listen to it, you can always fast forward, which is a great advantage, isn't it? And it will help me just sort my thoughts, talk myself out of my problems, and I guess just make me feel better. So that's another reason. Why am I doing a podcast, you might ask? Why haven't I become a famous YouTuber? Why haven't I just written a blog or put a lot of photos on the internet? The reason is, other than just the necessity for me to talk and talk and talk and bore people to death, what I'm trying to say is that when you listen to somebody talk, there's a lot of extra information that you don't really get while you are reading a text. Reading a book, reading a text, reading an article is all about the content, not at all about the form. Well, you can write it in different forms, but people don't care about it as much. If you are making a video, most of the focus is actually on the video, and the sound, I think, is quite secondary. I love podcasts and speaking because it gets all the focus on the form and the content as well. People think about tone languages, like in Chinese, if you say a word, it has different meanings depending on the intonation and the pronunciation. I think all languages are tone languages, but people just take it for granted. They don't think about it that way. Let me illustrate just quickly with a word like shit, for instance. You could say shit in different situations. You could say shit, or shit, or shit. And it's a completely different meaning. You would say something like, can you believe this ramen was so tasty? Shit. Or you could say, shit, I hit my head on the doorframe again. Or you could say, you're such a piece of shit, aren't you? Same word, different intonation, and gives you a lot of context, a lot of feelings, a lot of extra meaning that you wouldn't get in a text, I believe. And also, it's much easier to get the information from listening to something than to just read it. And if you listen to an hour of a podcast, the content, the actual content, might be much shorter, might be much simpler, might be a little bit less interesting. But at the same time, you get a lot of things from how the person is saying. You get all of the feelings, you get all the emotions, and it gets much, much more pleasant to listen to it for a longer time. And I believe you really get the idea, you really get an insight into how the person is thinking, what he really wants to say. So that's why I am trying to make a podcast. I hope I will get better at talking to myself, and I hope this is what I hopefully will achieve. Anyway, I have just realized I have not answered the first question, have I? So, who am I? I am a programmer, designer, game developer, want to be game developer, but mostly language teacher. I have learned a little bit of French, a lot of German, a lot of English. I have learned a lot of Japanese, but forgotten most of it, so now I'm trying to improve with that. And I am Czech. I am from the Czech Republic, which is now called Czechia, but nobody knows that except expats. I don't know what is the official name actually, so in Czech that's Česká republika. And I like to do a lot of things, I like to try new things, and this is the biggest new thing I have tried so far. So I'd like to share it with other people. Alright, the next question is, what is this podcast? What can you expect to see in the podcast? I have decided to make a lot of segments or parts or sections with different names, which will hopefully make it organized and easy to listen to. Also, hopefully it will allow you to skip parts you don't like. Obviously, some people will like some parts, some people like other parts. I would love to have it varied, so it can talk to a lot of different types of people. So absolutely feel free to skip a section. So let's go quickly through all the sections. The biggest and longest is absolutely going to be something that happened to me in Japan. Everybody likes to talk about themselves, of course. I try not to do that, but I do that too much, obviously. So that will be just me mumbling, blabbering about what happened, all the stories that happened to me. So it will be called What Happened to Me. Next part is a language quirk. By quirk, I mean something interesting and different in Japanese that I haven't met or haven't noticed in other languages. I will try to include some examples, I will try to explain how to use it, I will try to give you an example from real life where I have come in contact with this phrase or word. Next, I'd like to talk about some food or drinks, give you some background, give you some history, and also my feelings about this beverage or food after I have eaten it. Next, there is photos. I will add some photos in the description. I will try to describe them, and you can look at them after you have listened to the podcast. If you don't want to, don't worry about it. But there will be one photo which will be a special shop or a special brand or a special advertisement which I am fascinated with. I love Japanese advertising. So what I love to do is to make a quick mock fake advertisement, like a quick joke, where I comment on what I thought of when I saw this brand. So for some people this might be a lot of fun. For other people it might be completely irrelevant and difficult to understand what the fuck is this moment. I really enjoy doing this, so I don't really care. It will be just a few seconds or not longer than half a minute. So if you don't like this, just skip it or ignore it, please. Next part will be a song from the radio. I have been listening to songs on the radio in Japanese, and some of them are quite different, so I will try to end the podcast with a song from the radio, just to give you an idea what type of music you can hear in Japan. And last but not least, the thought of the day, my favorite segment of this podcast, and also how I would like to differentiate it from other podcasts. To say it simply, it's just me talking about what I have been thinking about, which I do too much, and I just need to talk about it. So there will be something I am thinking about. I will try to describe what I mean. I will try to give you some food for thought. Hopefully this is the part which would make you think about things, and hopefully in an ideal world, which might never happen, but in an ideal world which would inspire you to actually do something different in your life, or at least to have some self-reflection. In a really ideal world, what I'd love to do is to have a following part or following segment to this discussion, and that is if somebody actually replied to this idea, I would include part of this in the next episode and just talk briefly about it and have an ongoing discussion. I love talking about things like this, so if the discussion went on for a few episodes or it was longer, I would love to do that. If it doesn't happen, never mind. I honestly believe I need this just to talk myself out of my mental problems, I guess. So that's all of it. I'm thinking about one more segment that I just thought of, and that's what I don't like about Japan, because it's becoming a real challenge to find something negative about Japan, but there are small things. I can nitpick small things. So everybody's really excited and optimistic, as I am as well. But there could be things that, of course, there are always things that could be improved. So maybe I'll try that just as a quick joke. So thank you for listening so far. Before I finish today, I'd like to give you a quick story about why is it the Mind Duck Japan podcast. Why would you call it a mind duck? So one of the first reasons is that a long time ago I had a lesson at the language school about fear, and I mentioned phobias, and there's a specific phobia called anatidaephobia. It's Latin, I don't know how to pronounce it. The phobia is that people are scared of the fact that, or of the possibility that there is always a duck somewhere hidden and watching you. This started as an interesting fact and grew into an inside joke that will never end in my life. So I've been getting presents of ducks. There are ducks in my apartment. There are ducks in my profiles on the internet. There are ducks all over the language school. There are ducks everywhere. And when I lived in the Czech Republic, I hope I have escaped a little bit coming to Japan. But when I lived in the Czech Republic, there has always been a duck somewhere in the room, a plastic duck watching me. So that's one of the reasons. But the main reason is that I've been going to this event called Global Game Jam. I love developing video games. I love video games and making new ideas. And during this event, thousands of people make thousands of ideas around the world. And I really love this. It's very creative. And of course, we needed to have a name for the team of our game development team. And because of the person I am, I always try to make an idea for the game that's really as different as possible. I love the idea that it should be an experiment. You should make something that has never been tried before. You should just go out there, think out of the box, and make something zany, something weird, something different. So, what better name for our team than Mindfuck? So, I talked about this to my friend, and he said, "Alright, I get where you are coming from. But we can't really name our team Mindfuck, can we? Wouldn't be very appropriate when they talk about our games." So, the first thing that came to my mind was Mind Duck, which is just Mindfuck with a D instead of an F. So I drew a logo in 5 seconds, I guess. I love designing logos. I love graphics or graphic design. So I had this quick scribble, this quick sketch with a duck, and there is a light bulb instead of the head, which we really liked, and that's how it started. And that's why this podcast is called Mind Duck, and it's in Japan. Thank you for listening. Thank you very much for trying this experiment with me. I hope you got an idea who I really am. I hope you got to know me a little bit better. And I hope you will enjoy the podcast and get something out of it. Thank you.